This is Martin Sherrington and welcome to Module 11 of Google Semantic Search with myself and David Amaland. And David is going to discuss today the 4 V's of semantic search. Over to you, David.
This is Module 11 and now we're getting to the heart of some fundamentals behind semantic search. Now essentially semantic search is a big data problem, or rather it is the answer to the big data problem. And the big data problem is that the information across the web is scaling at an incredible rate. We are having more and more difficulty finding, or we were having more and more difficulty finding what we wanted, and it was not really going to get any better. And the only way to do this is to be able to basically index and categorize the information across the web, and then present it in a way that is totally relevant to us. And the moment it does that, then the value of the information that we have access to increases exponentially. Big data is governed by 4 vectors, and they are volume, velocity, variety, and veracity. And they're critically important. And semantic search is also governed by the same 4 vectors. And let's look at them individually and try to understand them, because the moment we do, we'll be able to see exactly how they relate to us, and also what we need to do in order to gain traction in semantic search. Now, volume is what the word says, the amount of content that we pump out as individuals. So suppose you are in the habit of always sharing pictures of your lunch, breakfast and dinner. You bring out a podcast a day, perhaps write a couple of blog articles a day, and reshare the content of 20 or 30 trusted individuals from within your own social network, and share the content of your website as well. So there's a massive amount of volume of information. There's a lot of volume you're actually pumping out. And you're not unique in this if you're actually doing that. Everybody across the web is pumping out tremendous amounts of information, some of it voluntarily, through the activities that I just described, some of it perhaps a little less so through the social engagement and what that means, and we're going to get to that in a minute. So this is the volume we're talking about in terms of the web and the information that is being pumped out. And then there's velocity, and velocity is that basically helps to explain how quickly that information travels. So if you just started on the web, you don't know anybody, you haven't got any social network contacts, your website is new, and you don't even know how to use social networks very well, then your velocity is next to 0, because you can create some content on your website, it just stays there. You put something out, a tweet perhaps, or an Instagram picture, or you share something in Google+, and it doesn't go anywhere, it just stays in your profile. So therefore, there's not a lot of velocity in terms of what you do, and also there's not as much ability for Google's search engine to understand the importance of what you're doing in relation to other people. Velocity is important because as a social signal, it allows Google to understand the importance of something very specific. So suppose, for instance, that there is a question of how to do something very specific. It could be how to catch fish in the desert. If you have the answer to that question, and a lot of people want to find out what it is, then basically your content will go viral, it will get reshared, you'll have tremendous velocity across the web, and that in itself constitutes a signal. It's an involuntary signal now of how important your website is and how it is being engaged with. And then we get to variety. If you have found, to come back to my example, if you have found a way of catching fish in the desert, then it's going to be picked up, reblogged about, perhaps memes will be made about this. You may have people who actually go and do it, and then they post their content referencing you and mentioning you. And this is a variety which is created on the same theme or topic which you started off, and it impacts directly upon it in terms of authority, in terms of influence, in terms of reach, and in terms of semantic search, it also helps Google understand how important the original piece that you created was, And now, of course, it allows it to sort of understand you as the source of something tremendous. And then we get to the final vector of semantic search, the trickiest one of all, which is veracity. Because suppose you're catching fish in a desert which got the whole world fired up, is entirely fictional. You made it up. It doesn't happen. There are no fish in the desert. There's no way to actually catch them. Well, that is how Google will basically create a high sense of trust in the results that it presents us with. And in my example here, you may have actually managed to create volume in terms of the amount of information you pumped out about catching fish in the desert, and you managed to achieve velocity. People reshared your content, they thought it was important, and you even achieved variety. They reblogged about it and they made up their own fictional things. But then we get to veracity. And veracity is the element which will allow us to say, well, is this true? Did it really happen? Is it something we can actually trust? And here you get all sorts of signals which are machine mined about the depth of your profile. If you're new and those people engaging with you are also new on the web, well, there's a question mark behind your trust and authority on the subject, which means that you may have all the other signals, but you will not surface high on search because of that question mark. If perhaps in the past you have engaged in activity which is a little bit suspect, it was not very authoritative, or it turned out to be false, then again, that will also begin to reflect upon the rankings. So these four vectors govern pretty much anything which has to do with data on the web. And all the information you put there is data. Your website essentially is data. Your digital profile, your personal signals, is also data. And that's how you should approach it. That's how it impacts upon what you do. This is what impacts upon what others do. And this is where the social signal comes in, which we have seen to date. I hope this has helped.
That was David Amerland, and he was talking about, just to recap, volume, velocity, variety, and veracity. And this is the end of the 11th module, which means we've got one more module left, and hopefully be wrapping everything up for you. So see you on the final module.